In this video, we're going to continue on in Chapter 5 with Activity 512, installing a subdomain in our environment. Now, before we start with 512, the first thing we need to do is revert our virtual machines back to their initial configuration snapshot. Here I am, I'm on server SA1, and the first thing I notice is I have my initial config snapshot, and then I have another snapshot right here. I want to get rid of this one. Somehow that came in there by accident, so I'm going to right click on it and say delete checkpoint and delete. The only snapshot I want to exist is the initial config, so I will right click on that and then say apply. It will ask me if I'm sure. I will say yes. I want to make sure I do that for server SA1, Hyper-V 1, DM2, DM1, and DC1, and then finally turn on DC1 and SA1 for this lab. All right, with that being said, we are now logging into SA1 as administrator, and we want to open up PowerShell. One of the things I will note here that I have seen in some environments, this specifically says administrator, which means I did successfully revert my lab. If it says administrator.az800, you did not revert your virtual machine. So go back and try it again. Okay, so now in server SA1, in order to make this a subdomain, we need to do two things. First off, we need to add a Windows feature. Specifically the AD domain services. And we want to include management tools and enter. This will take a second, so I will pause and come right back. All right, my Windows feature just finished installing. We can see here success, true. And restart, no. So we succeeded and do not yet need to reboot. Now that the software is installed, we need to configure this as a domain controller. So again, we can do this through PowerShell. Install ADDS domain dash credential. We want get dash credential. Specifically for AZ800 / administrator. And we specifically want to do a new domain name named sub-A with a parent domain name of az800.corp. Domain type of child domain. We'll go ahead and press enter. It will ask me for AZ800 administrator's password. That is password 01. Password 01 and password 01. Finally, am I absolutely certain I want to do this? I will press enter to say yes. And it is now configuring itself as a domain controller. This will take a couple of minutes to install and then should automatically reboot when that's done. And I will pause the video until then. All right, now after a fairly lengthy install and reboot process, server SA1 is up and running. I went ahead and logged in as administrator per the instructions. Here in Server Manager, if I click on local server, I should see right here underneath where it says computer name and then domain, it specifies I am now in the sub-a.az800.corp domain. Hooray! I've created my subdomain. Next, let's check our domains and trusts. So under Tools, Active Directory, Domains and Trusts. And we can see right there is my az800.corp, and right underneath that is my sub-a, sub-a.az800.corp. If I right click AZ800 and properties, and then the trusts tab, I should see, yes, there is a trust, both incoming and outgoing. with sub a az800.corp. Additionally, if I go to Tools and DNS, DNS was installed on server SA1 when I promoted this to a domain controller, and we will see under forward lookup zones, I am part of a sub a.az800.corp with server A right there. If I look over on server DC1, close that, and I do the same thing, I go into DNS. And I go to server DC1 and its forward lookup zones. I will see that it is in fact AZ800. However, there is also a reference to sub A. It says it's grayed out because it's a delegated zone as opposed to actually being owned by this server. DC1 has delegated the access and administration of sub A to server A. And that is the end of activity 512.